So welcome everyone. Really nice to see and meet you all. My name is Kat, or Katrina. I'm part of the Mischief Makers team. We're a change agency here from Amsterdam, really leveling up how people come together and meet. So we're transforming all sorts of meetings from meetings, workshops, gatherings, events, programs into more engaging and interactive experiences so that we're spending our time in a meaningful way. And I'm here tonight to bring up some of those mischief sparkles and guide you through the program alongside the amazing Creatives for Climate team. So very happy to be here. So Creatives for Climate has been a growing movement over the past couple of years. They are bringing or creating a platform for people to really meet, connect, collaborate, and bring some amazing initiatives to this world. So tonight should be an invitation for all of you to join into this movement and really understand how you can make the Creatives for Climate mission your own, really understanding your role within it. And it should also be an opportunity for you to meet and learn with all of these multidisciplinary people that we have in this room tonight, so that you can leave inspired and empowered, and especially also committed to take some action towards making this world a better place. Are you ready for this? Yes, nice, I love the energy. So for this we have an amazing lineup of guests for you waiting. They will come here on stage in a moment. So we'll hear a bit about the growth path of Creatives for Climate over the last couple of years. We'll explore and hear from a couple of our guests about some tangible ways that creativity can be put into action. We're also going to highlight the role of storytelling and storytellers in this in creating that change, and explore an answer or several answers to the question, what does creativity for good really look like? So maybe some of you have some answers ready as well. So this should also then lead into an open conversation so that we can hear from all of you, make use of the brains that we have in this room to find some answers, and also hear from you how you're already taking action or maybe also the challenges that you're facing in doing so. You ready for this? Give me another yes.
I was asked a while ago to have a conversation about climate change in Amsterdam Southeast. I work with predominantly kids of color, and we talk about so many different things because our company builds bridges between communities and industries. And what we often do is we create this imaginary camp on the middle of that bridge, and where we all meet, because I feel everybody has to cross that bridge a little bit to show that they're in need of answers, in need of understanding. So in that conversation where a lot of young people did not know anything about climate change, I tried to kind of, in my way, explain how I look at it, and also, but you know, I'm this person, I came here with a car, so I'm not your friend, but it's hybrid, so I'm on my way. And we had this conversation about how would you explain to another person how climate change might feel to some. And I came to this just short story. It's a house of 4 people, and the oldest child went into the fridge. And in the fridge is this big bottle of Coca-Cola. And it's the only bottle that's left. He takes it and he drinks it to the last drop. And his siblings come and say, wow, but we also want cola. And now he said, but I've been doing some research, and study shows that water is actually better for you. But they're so fixated on one thing, that cola. Even though the insight is right, the study is right, they're fixated on one thing, something that he had, and they were longing to get. And in the translation to the people that I work with, it's the big BMW. A lot of the kids want that. It's they want stuff that now has been shown is not good for the people and it's not good for the planet. But in some people's mind, it's like, wow, now all of a sudden I'm almost ready to get that, and now you tell me it's not good, I can't? So how do we make sure that we use creativity to translate the, the message that we want to bring across? Because for some it feels like, wow, we're missing out again. Everything is getting more expensive. We can't be part of it. Everything is getting more like on a level that we can't understand, so we can't be a part of it. But creativity has the possibility to transcend languages and just bring the message in a way where it keeps in mind who they're speaking to. So we want to not only send a message, but we want to make sure it lands. So we need to find different ways to communicate and to make sure that if it's that important for the people and the planet, then it's that important for us to dig deeper in how we speak to others that are not a part of this conversation. And it's not easy, but sometimes you also need to say, maybe I don't understand that language. I need another person that does next to me because it's needed, because to me it's more important that it comes across than only if I send it. So that was my take that I wanted to start like as a start opener of this event. But also in all love to Jelani, I want to share what he had to say. He said, for some of us, saving the planet comes second or even third after being safe and being truly equal. But we share a common notion, survival. When you look at a future of a healthy earth, please picture all of us in there. That was his message. I hope you have an amazing night. I'll be here also for the open conversation. And I'm very happy to be able to share a story of those whose stories often not reach a room like this. So I'm here to explain, if needed, and elaborate on what I said. Thank you.
Wow, so beautiful. I feel truly honored to have such an incredible welcome and so supported actually by the creative community and so many impressive people in the room tonight. So a little story about who we are, how it began, and what we're here to do. Wake up. The climate crisis is actually doing the job of communicating the climate crisis. So it's not the role of communicators anymore to just tell people it's an emergency. We all know it's an emergency. But back in 2019, that is actually the role that we took and that we saw. So in June 2019, it was my first time in Cannes, snap picture, in my other job. And Extinction Rebellion did an action. And in any conversation about sustainability in a really meaningful way, I think was very absent that year. And this action was awesome and catalyzed a lot of thinking in my brain. I ran up to one of the XR rebels. I said, I have this amazing impact consultancy. I'm on the good side. And he turned to me and he said, do you know what is the problem with impact consultants? You have too much to gain from the problem. So I thought, fuck, what am I going to do? Because I really believe in my business. And so I thought, well, what if we could bring the creative industry together to hear that message too? And so in 2019, we hosted a Creators for Climate Summit at Patagonia. And I was looking around to find this rousing voice within XR the Netherlands, and I had to become it. And so we together crafted this message to the creative industries. Tell the truth about the emergency. Do this in boardrooms, in meetings, in private conversations. Use your power to tell this message across campaigns, on billboards, on screens. Speak to your brands and tell them to do the same. Switch to a collaborative mindset. Realize that we live in a toxic system, and part of us is toxic. We have to shift from a competitive mindset to a truly collaborative one. And the rest are actually created by people in the room, some of which are here tonight. Understand that conscious consumerism is not the answer. Recognize your power. It's not just brands and their efforts. You're going to hear a lot about what agencies can do tonight. And don't reinvent the wheel. And I just want to take time to read this one. While many of us already working in the space want to devise our own solutions, building a sustainable society is a massive, complex, and system-wide challenge. Practice joining other movements and amplifying solutions and calls to action that already exist. Do you hear me, agencies? I know you want to be the hero. What can we do? What was intended as a one-off event turned into a movement. So this was only supposed to be an event. I had no intention of building a nonprofit on the side of what I was doing. But I kind of felt a responsibility to all the people that signed up to our first event to mobilize and offer you something. So we issued our first brief in the spirit of collaboration. So we amplified an existing call to action from Futera called the Creative Climate Disclosure, and also Purpose Disruptors' call to create and strike. So we said, all right, creative industry, you can declare a climate emergency, but you have to sign up to these initiatives because it's too easy, of course, to just declare a climate emergency. And 22 agencies did, along with the ADCN, who we'll be hearing from tonight. So go indie agencies, we see you and your ability to move fast. We caused a bit of a stir and started experimenting with issuing more briefs. What are the existing calls to action that exist out there? So the global climate strike in September 2019 was a huge moment. And so we issued another a call to action, and you can see some of the creative here on the wall from the community. We were really excited about what this community wanted to do and was capable of. And obviously, it's always exciting when you see things go from the database to the streets. Then the October Rebellion in 2019 was another kind of key peak. And I have to say, like, the momentum in 2019 was amazing. Again, some of the creativity you can see on the wall. And so we realized that this new way of campaigning was pretty effective, but also very fun. And so we issued 10 more briefs. These weren't all this year, they're up to date, actually, with supporting a range of actions from activists and solution holders. And in 2 cases, our actions contributed to policy change. So we supported Reclaim Fossil Free with their efforts to ban fossil fuel advertising in Amsterdam, and also a New Zealand-based initiative to ban a toxic chemical called glyphosate in the streets. And so our efforts look something like hosting an inspiring event about soil and regenerative agriculture to the ad industry, getting people excited about what regenerative agriculture could look like, issuing a brief, supporting a local initiative with assets and global support. Those assets ended up on billboards in the streets and in local media. So our story so far goes from meeting together as a summit, taking action in experimental ways, meeting online, and then only this year, with a kind tip from Duncan from Clean Creatives, did we discover the great world of philanthropy. And we became a nonprofit foundation. So going forward, we figured out what we do. We have 3 focus areas: collaboration, learning, and action. Our goal is to connect and reskill 1 million creative and sustainability professionals to tackle greenwashing in their work and drive collective climate action. A few key beliefs. The solutions to the climate crisis exist. They don't need to be invented. There are so many people working on solutions and calls to action out there. And as storytellers, we can play a role in connecting, amplifying, and mobilizing people around these. We also believe that we need new ways of acting, working, and being to build this new economy, and collaboration is essential. We hope that our community is a place where you can just practice this new way of being and relating to others. So our central question here at Creators for Climate and all that we do is, how do we use our creativity for good? And I can tell you, as a cynical person, we have been more confident to tell you, our audience, our community, what creativity for bad looks like. We're more certain about those calls to action. We really believe in them. Comms Declare, Futera, Clean Creatives, Fossil Free, Greenpeace, Fossil Ad Ban. But tonight, in the second part of the night, we really want to explore with you what creativity for good, for real, can look like. And we will collectively answer that question. So thank you for being here. Thank you for our fallen spirits for loosening us up a little bit. And Lizzie is a member of our community. She's got a beautiful talk. I'm really excited to hand the mic to Lizzie.
Hi, hello everyone. My name's Lizzie. I'm a freelance art director and member of the Creatives for Climate community. I've worked in the industry for about 8 years at places like Pentagram and Google Creative Lab, and for the last couple of years been freelance and really trying on the mission to try and prioritize work that makes meaningful change for people and the planet. So some of my work here. But the thing that I'm talking about tonight is represented by this, which is the kind of messy, scary thoughts that I've been having over my career, where I've been thinking a lot about what is my role in this industry and what is this industry's role in capitalism and the climate crisis and all the things that we're worried about at the moment. And these stayed as messy, scary thoughts for a long time until a conversation with a friend who said, you should write this down, you should make it into a talk that you can share with people. And so that's what this is. And I shared it with the Creators for Climate community earlier this year. So it's a very short, very personal essay about these feelings, and hopefully it sets up, it's a bit more on the creativity for bad scale than the creativity for good solutions, but yeah, hopefully there's things that resonate with you all here. The sharp end of capitalism. That's how creativity feels sometimes. Its tools can be design, copywriting, art direction, or strategy. Because of its power and cultural appeal, creativity has become a buzzword used by boardrooms across the world. Meanwhile, all around us are signs that the systems we live in are breaking at the seams. That rampant inequality, white supremacy, a mental health crisis, and the climate catastrophe are all fueled by this desire for growth. But it wasn't supposed to be like this, right? We went to art school to subvert. But now I'm used to make the complicated overly simple and make the messy things clean. I'm the clever Dex that can sell in any idea, even if it's empty, stupid, or dangerous. I'm the change the world campaign stunts that look good in a portfolio but didn't achieve a whole lot more. I'm how you've been convinced to hand over mountains of your personal data because they were given a harmless name like cookies. I'm the colorfully illustrated hoardings that hide gentrifying developments on our city streets. I'm how oil giants make us believe that the future is safe in their hands. I'm the mood boards of images belonging to artists and activists that are handed over to brands to co-opt, remix, and sell. I'm the brand statement about Black Lives Matter that comes with zero internal change. I'm the Creativity for Good award that doesn't really care whether you've also done creativity for bad. I'm why good causes feel like commodities and why brands feel like our friends. But it's not my fault that I'm forced to sell my skills this way. And the skill set that we have is beautiful. It builds worlds, tells stories, rallies people, and unites them. Plus, while we're trying to change the system, we've got to pay the bills. So where do we go from here? How can our creativity be used for more? For justice, for joy, for care, for community, for imagination, and for repair. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Duncan. I'm the Executive Director of Clean Creatives, which I'm going to tell you all about in 5 minutes. This is about why you should be a clean creative, why we want you to take the pledge to not work with fossil fuel clients. And we're going to start with a brief discussion of Climate Change 101. One, climate change is real, it's happening now. 1/3 of Pakistan was underwater because of a combination of melting glaciers and extreme weather. This is happening. It's happening mainly because of fossil fuels. Climate change is a lot of things, but it is primarily a problem with the fossil fuel industry. 3/4 of dangerous carbon pollution is caused by the energy sector. But fortunately, we don't need them anymore. We do not need any new pipelines, any new power plant, any gas power plants, any coal power plants to meet all of the world's energy needs. We can build everything with renewable energy from here on out and allow universal access to electricity. So this is the basic point I want to make. Every misleading story that anyone in the world understands about climate change begins with an agency working for a fossil fuel company. Every misleading story. Doubt and denial. Delay. Oh, we can wait, we'll just drill some more fracking wells. Fake solutions. I was in that video talking about Exxon's algae ad. This doesn't exist. Green, purpose, whatever, washing, these are, I don't know what pregnant lesbian couple has to do with Chevron. It was in a Chevron ad. And these ads are lies. This is an example from Shell. You look at their website, you hear about their climate target. This is at the top. Here's what's at the bottom. Shell's operating plans and budgets do not reflect Shell's net zero emissions target. Word for word from their website in a disclaimer. This is Chevron. 80% of Chevron's ads in over the course of a year mention sustainability, renewable, the environment. You want to guess how much of they're actually spending on any of this? 1.8%. 80% versus 1.8%. That's a lie. And at least 200 agencies are working with fossil fuel companies or their front groups right now, from every single holding group. WPP, Interpublic, Omnicom, Publicis, Dentsu, Havas, all the big independent agencies, our friends at Edelman, FTI Consulting, on and on. You can find this whole list, cleancreatives.org/learn. You can find out all the agencies that we know of that are working with fossil fuel clients. But creative industry professionals can stop them. The people in this room actually have the power to change this with this pledge that we've written, and you can't see who's excluded. I don't know why that happened, but our agency, or you as an individual, will decline contracts with fossil fuel companies, trade associations, or front groups. If you're an agency, you can take this pledge. If you're an individual, you can take this pledge. If you're a brand, we would love to talk with you about how you can take this pledge and say the next time you send out an RFP, the next time you review your agencies, you won't hire any agency that works with polluters because they are making your brand worse, which we'll talk about in a second. And who's excluded? You can see that all in details. Basically, 50% of your company is still involved in producing, consuming fossil fuels. Not going to work with you. Who's in already? There's over 450 agencies around the world, some of whom might be in this room, that have taken this pledge, over 1,300 individual creatives. We want to add to this number. I have a very convenient QR code. We are growing and we can win. This is a discussion that agency heads cannot avoid anymore. We've been in the press, thanks to all the work of people who have been supporting us, like Lucy, and we can win. And the basic case we want to make here is that stopping fossil fuel ads in public relations is climate action. Here is a result of all those ads. This is the graph of carbon emissions up till 2021. It's been going up, kind of a jagged line, but 2021 it hit a record high. And here's a graph of the consumption of cigarette ads in the United States up until about 1970. And it looks a lot like that carbon graph, right? But right in 1970, the United States banned cigarette ads on radio and television. And here is what happened next. Straight down. And it's not just because people aren't seeing ads and picking up smoking for the first time. You see government action taking place because there is no longer the communication infrastructure behind an industry that's destroying people's lives. And there's a bonus. Not only will you be taking climate action, it actually benefit you, your agencies, your clients, and the planet. Basic point here is sustainability is about your clients. WPP, the world's largest ad agency, says that they want to have a climate action pledge to eliminate 5.4 megatons of CO2 per year. They are the primary agency for BP. BP emits 1,400 megatons of CO2 per year. Let's do some math. A 0.3 increase in BP sales as a result of WPP's activities wipes out the entire impact of WPP's climate plan. We have a graph. Big bar, little bar, never misses. But there's another case to here, which is actually greenwashing harms really green brands. If you are 7th generation, you're trying to build recycling, packaging, whatever, and BP is using your exact same style, one of two things is happening here. Consumers are either confused and they think you're both doing the same thing, which is not true, or they're cynical and they think you're both lying. That harms your brand if you are a green brand, which is why as for a brand, you should sign our pledge. Other examples, Aveda, Chevron, again, cows. What does it have to do with anything? But team culture is a competitive advantage. If you're a young person now entering the workforce coming out of college, you participated in the climate strikes, or you know a lot of your friends who did. You don't want to be a part of this industry that is destroying your future. It also puts your agency on the right side of cause campaigns, and I have a great example of this. Tazo is a tea brand, used to be part of Unilever. They were working with the agency Edelman on a really nice campaign, actually. They were doing tree planting in environmental justice communities in the United States. So people that had been affected by refinery pollution, mostly black and brown communities. They were investing in really good organizations. At the exact same time, They were working with an organization called the American Fuel and Petrochemical Manufacturers. You want to know what they do? They advocate to allow more pollution from those same refineries. And that's a conflict of interest. It's a conflict of values, but I'd say you're just on the wrong side of history too. The last thing is just managing potential legal and regulatory risks. The French government passed a law banning fossil fuel ads. There's some loopholes in there that I would change, but it is happening. Amsterdam, Reclaim Fossil Frei, passed a law limiting fossil fuel ads in Amsterdam. Excellent work. There's a complaint against BP has been brought to court several times over their misleading ads. There's over 1,800 legal actions around the world about climate change, including in the United States, several states in the United States suing companies and they're involving their agencies, and a lot more to come. But also, it's just embarrassing. A bunch of agencies had their internal emails around their work for fossil fuel clients released by the United States Congress earlier this year. You can read what they said. It's not pretty. That's going to keep happening for any agency that has their ties with fossil fuel companies because these lawsuits are not going to stop. But I have an inspiring quote to end, because it wouldn't be a presentation without one. This is from UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. He was speaking to a group of young people graduating from college in the United States, and I really like this. You hold the cards. Your talent is in demand from multinational companies and big financial institutions. You have plenty of opportunities to choose from. My message to you is simple. Don't work for climate wreckers. Use your talents to drive us towards a renewable future. That's what we're here to do. Here is my QR code. We would love to continue building community in Amsterdam. There's a lot of influential, smart people here. There's a large oil company here you might have seen. We want to keep collaborating with creatives in Amsterdam and around Europe, so please be in touch. That QR code will take you to the place to sign up. We would love to have you be a part of our movement. Thank you.
Hello, wasn't expecting that. And first of all, straight up, anybody here who does work in advertising, please don't take this personally. I didn't mean it that way. I didn't mean it that way. Okay, so advertising. We do three things. We are about problematizing this issue. We are about movement building, and we are about seeing actual regulation and legislation on this issue. And from our perspective, this isn't just about greenwashing. We think there are bigger and wider problems to do with the social and well-being impacts of advertising. And one of the interesting things we think about advertising is that in some ways it's so pervasive that it's almost invisible. So when we came up with Badvertising, obviously what we wanted to do was stop bad adverts, so we thought Badvertising worked quite well, but we didn't want to stop there. We thought we might be so audacious as to try and take the advertising industry on at its own game and rebrand it. And to rebrand it, we thought we needed a public information campaign, and there wasn't a government ministry that was prepared to run one, so we invented our own, and we invented the Ministry for the Climate Emergency. And the Ministry for the Climate Emergency came up with its own public information campaign, in which we rebranded advertising as brain pollution. Brain pollution. We thought that pressed a few buttons on the old climate change issue as well. And you can look it up on the site, and you can see other things. We came up with a few other things, like Joe is suffering from brain pollution. Are you? Look up the website, find out what's going on. And we took it a step further because we thought you've got to get a little bit of attention when you're trying to establish an issue. I don't know if you can see this. This is outside our government department for digital culture, media and sport. They regulate advertising, ultimately pass laws, oversee it. Because in our research we identified that really effective advertising actually leaves physical traces in your brain. It changes your brain. So we pushed the envelope a little bit, and you can see one of the treatments there. It's not a tumor, it's an advert. And there's Robbie, who's here in this room down on the front row. We also drove this to some advertising, some of the big agencies in London, and we sort of were taking photographs outside, and the security guard came out to Robbie and said, what are you doing? And Robbie just turned around and said, we're from the Ministry for the Climate Emergency. And the security guard went, oh, okay then. Moved on. So we wanted to also land this in an area where big impacts were happening. And obviously one of the big areas, because we talk a lot about fossil fuel companies, but people don't go out and kind of like, just dig up and buy their own oil. It's through your activities, it's through your behaviors. And we wanted to look at one of the ways in which advertising very particularly had pushed a form of high carbon consumption through the shift towards bigger cars, sports utility vehicles. So we did some research on that. We looked at this. We looked at the way in which, for example, in the UK alone, as a result of advertising campaigns, sales of SUVs went from 1 in 10 new cars to 4 in 10 new cars in less than a decade. And in a single year in the UK, we pointed out how 150,000 cars were sold that were too big for normal parking places. So we started running a campaign on this, and then we moved on to aviation, and we're now talking about aviation as an issue. We've started doing, the Ministry for the Climate Emergency is very active, it's not wasting any time. It's taking on the flight and holiday companies on their own terms, and we're trying to join the dots, connect the issues. A few treatments, which we translated these materials into multiple languages. We set up equivalents of the Ministry for the Climate Emergency in 7 or 8 different countries, translated all the work, and the treatments are now getting picked up. I don't know how this happened. It's a complete mystery to me, but the artworks that we produced somehow got into the hands of activists who then went up and put them up in real life in bus stations and in the public, and that then got reported in the papers. What a terrible thing to happen, completely outside our control. So this is one of the ways in which we're trying to have a little bit of an impact. We're trying to provide the kind of the research background to this movement as service to the industry, our industry, the industry of bringing about change, the activist industry, so you can see some of the different issues that we've looked into, some academic research in the background, and we've started to break out into one area where we think we can get really big cut through. Really prime media real estate, the world of sport, where high carbon advertisers are everywhere. Whether it is, ironically, in the UK, British Cycling, who just took on Shell as a sponsor, the international ICC, International Cricket, they've just taken on Aramco as a sponsor. I think Dutch people play cricket too. Hi, Dutch people, we love you. Thank you for enjoying our really weird sport that we play in England as well. Sorry, everybody else, you won't understand it. Don't even try. So we've started moving into that area. We're developing that as an area. And the thing is that, I mean, a lot of people have made this connection now, but one of the reasons we went into this is because we know we can win. We have won before on this issue. I remember going to watch a cricket game when I was 11 years old that was sponsored by Benson & Hedges, sponsored by tobacco. We know that we can do this. We've looked into some of the history, some of the lessons from that, which we think we can apply to other issues. But the sheer audacity we forget how social and cultural norms can be shifted in relatively short periods of time. Just look at the ads. I mean, one is just absolutely bloody extraordinary. My favorite one, my unfavorite one, the cynicism, I'm going to grow to be 100 years old. I mean, Jesus, bad faith actors. So next up is just a little bit of a memory, again, how things change. That's what they used to do. That's what they do now. We heard a lot about that from Duncan, so I don't need to go into that. And this is a live thing. The World Cup is going to be starting in a couple of weeks' time. FIFA have been making outrageous claims about carbon neutrality. With the campaign, by putting complaints into the regulator, we coordinated an action with 4 other countries to put in a complaint about that. It's getting cut through on the main BBC site, which has millions and millions and millions of hits. It's helping to grow the movement. It's helping to broaden it all. We're building the movement. This is direct action off the day of a joint activity with Ad-Free Cities outside the offices of Mediacom in London. And things are happening, as they are in the Netherlands as well. Local municipal authorities, some quite big cities now, Liverpool and Norwich, have passed advertising policies against that. North Somerset as well. We provide toolkits for local authorities and for local campaigners so that they can run campaigns in their local areas to get change to happen. This is just, you can go on our website, you can join in the actions, they're all there. And we're starting to get cut through. A new report out from the second chamber in the UK government setup, which is the House of Lords, has endorsed the idea of the need to regulate high carbon and environmentally damaging products, the advertising and promotion of. So things are beginning to happen. And we know it works as well. This is another sort of echo of Duncan's stuff about, when you take away the pressure to buy, good things happen. Health improved with junk food ads. And so just to finish up, this was, I thought, a message from God. This is a message from God. This van, this lorry parked outside my house. It's actually a removals lorry, but it was called Ads Removals. And I think if we're here to do one thing, ladies and gentlemen, it's to become the removal service for high carbon and environmentally damaging advertising. Thank you for listening.
absolutely love how some people kind of picked up on the bad advertisement and brandalized the whole city. Definitely pro that. So I'm from Greenpeace Netherlands, and I'm here to talk to you about our collaborations with Creators for Climate. But before I do that, I will give you some insight in what my job actually entails. I'm what's called an actions coordinator or safety coordinator. And we come up with creative actions to confront big companies and the government as well. So we occupied the parliament over there. We were at Unilever. Maybe you in the bottom left corner, you remember it was last week. Absolutely love the chase. Yeah, and in the top right corner, we were at the gas exploration rig above Schiermonnikoog. It's a Dutch island. And we were able to stop it for a day, sadly. Only a day. But that's what my job actually entails, to come up with these actions and to kind of lead them. But it also enables me to see from up close what the industry actually looks like. So this was an action in the North Sea between Norway and the UK. And here Shell actually wanted to remove their rigs partly. So in the back you see a full rig, but they wanted to leave the pillars standing in the sea, full with tons of oil to rot, basically. So we went there. And this is a place where no one else actually comes, maybe some fishermen, but that's about it. And when I was standing on the helideck of the Rainbow Warrior, I could count up to like 15 of those rigs all around me. And it made me really sad, because this is what this industry actually looks like. All flaring excess gas and heavily polluting rigs. Yeah, and I thought to myself, like something that looks like this, how can it be successful? And it's quite an open door right now. But obviously there is an industry that can make something that look like this, and like this. So proper greenwashing. And this is what people actually see. They never see those rigs. They never see the pollution. They never see the human rights abuses, etc. And that's actually when I, after that, ran into Creators for Climate. And I was invited by Lucy to play kind of the bad cop in the room. I tried. Just to tell, like, if you actually believe in a better world and you want to take care of our planet, then it's not compatible with taking on briefs from these like evil companies. But you don't have to be an activist like us. There's like a middle ground. You can be an activist in your own field as well. And we started a good collaboration on that. But before that, with Greenpeace, we also thought, okay, we're gonna target that. So we started a campaign, an EU-wide campaign, was called the Fossil Free Revolution, with the aim on getting a EU-wide ban on fossil ads. Not just for the fossil fuel companies, but also ads for airlines, combustion engines, etc. And we started it off with a big action. I'm just going to give you some insight through pics, because this is what we do, and it's also kind of nice to see where the two fields come together. So here we blocked Pernis. It's the biggest petrol harbor in Europe. No ships could come in until we were removed. This is me. I was in quite a pickle at that moment. But we also took those greenwashing ads and we actually put them on their actual dirty infrastructure to make visible the real contrast of that. Like, this is what it looks like and this is what you make it look like. And here we really want to get the signatures for an European Citizens Initiative. So with 1 million signatures, the European Council was actually obliged to take this in consideration, this fossil fuel ad ban. So we did a lot of actions to raise awareness and to make sure we got all the signatures. So, well, we got on stage at the Effies. Not sure you know it, but it's like a Dutch, the Dutch Lions, basically. We also crashed the party at the actual Lions with a meme dog. This is fine. A lot of meme dogs and canoes. A colleague of mine, Gustav, actually returned his lion, which he received a couple of years back, and then went on stage. No awards on a dead planet. So there were a couple of actions, raising awareness and making sure people would sign this ECI. And then we collaborated with C4C. Because I thought, okay, what better way to actually raise awareness than actually involve the industry itself? And it's a great message, actually creatives asking for a ban on ads. So that's what we did. Yeah, in August 2022, we teamed up with C4C to realize a ban on fossil fuel advertising in Europe. And C4C did a great job. They drew in a crowd of 100 plus creatives to launch an open creative brief. And they responded with 20 plus creative assets and many more signatures. So it really helped out with the ECI. And we use those creative assets in our campaigns to create like momentum in the campaign. And then C4C took the message even further, and they partnered up with Clean Creatives and the New York Climate Week to share the work at an audience with over 1,000 attendees. You can see it right here. This is in New York. And these, you can see them all around as well, were the assets. Eventually, we didn't make it with the 1 million signatures at the ECI, sadly, and we're still opting for a ban on fossil ads, so we're continuing the, with that goal. 3 minutes left. Yeah, I'm almost done. But I think it was a great start with this collaboration, actually involving creatives in the struggle the battle against bad ads for bad companies. So it's time for new agreements, new rules. And if the government fails to lead us in this, that doesn't relieve us of the responsibility to take action ourselves. I want to ask you to stop advertising the fossil industry. And I'm not asking this of you as individuals or as independent agency, but as an actor, as a sector. So make a covenant of Dutch advertising agencies and agree. We don't do it anymore. All campaigns for coal, oil, gas, air travel, combustion engines, and fuel cars, we just don't do these anymore. Thanks.
Thank you. So what is creativity for good? Now that, let's just shake all that negative energy out of our systems. Because I too want to do good, but the truth is you got to tackle the bad to even get to the good. So if you're thinking I just want to focus on the positive, sorry, got to get involved, and now we can move on. So to transition us into this part of the night, I'm really excited to invite my colleague Lily Maxwell, who works with me both at the Humble Brag and Creators for Climate, to lead us into an interview. And don't worry, we will get to the audience very soon.
Thank you, Lucy. Hello, hello, hello. So as Lucy said, we're going to be exploring in the next section how we can use the power of storytelling and narrative making to create a better world. So in this bit, we're going to explore a little bit more about how we can be thinking about the nice futures we can have within a planet that's healthy and strong and resilient for future generations. So I'm really excited to welcome to the stage Anne-Marie Hoover. Thank you so much for joining us. Can you just tell us what 5 Media Foundation does so that everybody in the audience knows?
Yeah, so we're an impact media foundation, and you could wonder, what is that, an impact media foundation? It's a bit of a maybe odd combination of words strung together. We're quite a new foundation, and we're 100% committed to focusing on stories of positive change, solutions journalism, amplifying stories of solutions and change makers as a way to sort of not just counteract, but the existing, often negative realistic narratives, but also as a way to sort of just offer something to hold on to and a reason not for us not all to just go and hide under blankets, you know, because we also need those stories, and that's what we're here to do.
Amazing. And so, Anne-Marie, in storytelling for our planet, to you, why are narratives of hope so important?
Because I believe when you come from a place of hope as storytellers, that there's just so much that we can achieve in terms of impact. I think, you know, a lot of the narratives are really negative, you know, in the news, and you know, those are important stories. I mean, don't get me wrong, we need to feel the urgency, we need to know what's going on, you know, but I mean, there are a lot of people and media out there already doing that. So let's explore, you know, where we can go from here, right? What's next? How can we move on? How can we talk about people out there doing great things, solutions that are already out there? Because I don't know about you, but even I find a lot of the news quite paralyzing and overwhelming at a certain point. And you know, at a certain point, you just have to you know, keep going. You almost have to disengage. And surely that's the worst thing that you want to do when you want to drive people to action. You want to engage people and not have people feel disengaged. So that's why I'm really, you know, convinced in the power of finding this other narrative and exploring what we can achieve from that place. I think, you know, there are plenty of solutions out there, but we need to know about them. There are plenty of change makers out there, but we need to know about them, not just to amplify the work, the great work and solutions that you know, are already out there, but also, you know, to speak to everyone who's reading about these stories, and maybe they have an idea in their minds, and maybe they then can also feel inspired to chase that idea and do something with the potential action that they're considering. But you just sometimes need a bit of courage to fan the flame and be brave and, you know, get out there, you know, and I think that's what it's all about, just inspiring and amplifying, and we need those positive stories to do that. I think we're also, as humans, hardwired for change, for hope. That's what we respond to. I think despair. Sorry, I'm just prattling on. I'm just, but I just feel so passionate about this. I feel you know, despair feels like the end of the story, right? You know the outcome, it's the end. And I think in hope, there's still the space to rewrite the end, you know, of the story. There's still room to reimagine the outcome, and I think that's what we respond to as people. So I think, you know, hope isn't passive. I really think that's also important to note. It's not just sitting there and hoping that things will get better. I had the honor of interviewing Jane Goodall earlier this year, and I think, you know, if there's anyone who perhaps might have every reason to feel pretty, you know, full of despair, you know, her beloved Gombe Nature Reserve is under threat, all of the animals she's worked with, you know, she would have a few reasons to feel pretty desperate, but, you know, she's written a whole book about hope because she feels that that's what can serve us the most in terms of impact. And she made such an important point in saying that hope isn't passive, and that's why I just would like to share a few words that she mentioned briefly in regard to this. I'm just quoting Jane here. Hope is connected to determination and action. She describes that the human race is at the mouth of a dark tunnel, and right at the end of that tunnel is a little star of light, and that's hope. But we don't just sit at the mouth of the tunnel and hope that the star will come to illuminate us. We have to crawl under, climb over, and work our way around all the massive obstacles like climate change and the loss of biodiversity until we reach it. But we've all got to get together to take action. And she says, for me, that's a question of inspiring people to fight and to say, no, we will not let this happen. And I think that fight, we can do that with stories of hope and change. So that's the short answer.
Thank you so much, Anne-Marie. And so if we're talking about stories, what kind of climate and environmental stories are resonating with you most deeply at the moment? Do you have any you can share with us?
Certainly. You know, I'm all for heroes and putting people on pedestals, you know, doing great things. But I think some of the stories that resonate with me the most at the moment are the ones that I can really connect to emotionally. And those are the ones that, you know, show us also that it's okay to be human and imperfect. Because I think the minute that we're only focusing on the perfect, the all or nothing, the 100% vegan or 100% plastic free or, you know, nothing in between, I think that just makes it too difficult for, you know, most humans to maybe relate to or to feel like like there's room for them to make a contribution, you know. So I think it's really about finding ways to lower the bar, meet people where they are, open the door to conversation and to first steps, and to make it okay to take those first steps and not have everything figured out in advance. And to celebrate those stories that show that you can be flawed, but you can try, and that's, you know, that's okay. So let's not all project those stories of those celebratory stories of perfection, which are also super inspiring. But let's also create room in storytelling for the people who try, because I think that's where you can really find more people and inspire more people. That, you know, we all can contribute something. And I think it's also just helps then, you know, not to preach and to just try and open conversations and find ways that we can all contribute.
Even when your mum is cooking meat 5 nights a week, we can still try not to preach
to
her.
Yeah, you can try
Yeah,
and open a conversation and maybe see if your mum could try, like, not doing it 1 day a week. That's the start, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Your ultimate small baby steps. And kind of if we're thinking about everybody here in the room today, what can we do as individuals to create impact through creative storytelling?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's so much skill and talent here in the room. And I mean, the room's packed with incredibly skilled communicators. So I would just say, you know, use your skills. I think, you know, that's what you're all here for and interested in doing. So find ways that you can use your incredible skills and gifts and get out there and start talking. We recently interviewed Seth Godin, the marketing guru, who's actually just written a book, The Carbon Almanac, to sort of, you know, as a very accessible way of getting the message across. And he also makes such a great point when he says actually one of the most impactful things you can do, each of us, is to talk to 5 people about the climate. And so if we use our skills as storytellers, imagine how many people we can get talking to and get talking. So that's my challenge for you.
Hear, hear. Thank you, Anne-Marie.
I'm really excited to invite the Club for Creativity, ADCN Alessandro, on stage, as well as Maria Correa from B-Lab. So the ADCN declared a climate emergency along with us in 2019, and I'm curious, how has that affected you? What's changed?
Hello everybody. Also, for the ones who don't know maybe what ADCN is, we're the largest creative community in the Netherlands. We bring the industry together through events, workshops, and initiatives and collaborations like the one with Creative for Climates. And to answer that question, I think that, I mean, we took some steps as well, like as part of the Dutch Creativity Awards now, as part of the judging criteria for the entries that we receive, social impact as a big percentage in that, so when we guide the jury into voting for that. But I think the bigger change that we see that's really not on us, but it's more on the organizations that also spoke tonight, or initiatives like Creative for Climate, and kudos to you, like really thank you for all that you shared tonight. It was really, you're fucking amazing. But I think what we see as change is that when you're in the rooms with juries, for example, that are deliberating on entries that we receive and so forth, that conversation has shifted, because now people really have also sometimes heated conversations about what to award and what kind of message they want to send by awarding certain projects. And it doesn't stop also at just like the clear like greenwashing projects or whatever, but it goes to also sometimes wondering, should we award this kind of brand or should we award this kind of agency because we know that they work also with fossil fuel. And it also, well, it's not just that, but it also goes into other realms that I think we also didn't touch upon enough tonight, like diversity and inclusion, because I think that this is an issue that it's so like interconnected and cross-disciplinary that we can't just solve it by thinking of only about climate change, but we also have to think about all these other issues. And that's nice to see that those conversations have shifted. So that's one thing. And the other one that we see is in the younger generations, the people that we talk to that are really not buying it anymore. They're not willing to work for certain kind of brands or certain agencies and stuff. So that change will come for sure.
Thank you so much, Alessandro. Fantastic, and so great to have you here because a lot of creatives are interested in receiving awards. So great to get some insiders' tips. Maria, thank you so much for being here. So tell me a little bit about your transition from working on the, I don't actually mean from the bad side to the good side, but tell us a little bit about your background and what you do now.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Lucy, and it's incredible to be here today. I know a lot of you are in the industry, and I, too, am a recovering advertiser. So I spent most of my career working in the creative industry. And I think for me, one of the challenges that I had is, as a strategist, the more I started learning about the climate emergency, inequality, I really was inspired about the role of creativity in raising awareness for those issues, but also kind of changing behaviors, changing culture, changing the way businesses are run. But came across a frustration of, communication alone can't do that. You need to actually fundamentally change the way a business is run and the way that they operate. And I love what Alessandro was talking about of the environment is just one aspect of that. So thinking, just beyond profits, how a business is accountable to all of its stakeholders and the role of business in benefiting all people on the planet. So I was thrilled to kind of make that transition from the advertising industry to now working at B-Lab, which is the global network, the nonprofit global network behind the B Corp movement. And there's some incredible B Corps here today. You heard from Avalon, there's WeTransfer, Hooten, and probably a lot more in the room. But seeing and learning about this framework that actually helps businesses better understand their impact on people on the planet, measure that, improve that, and help kind of, really reimagine the role of businesses from being part of the problem to how can we be a part of the solution.
Love that, thank you. So if every business became a B Corp or every agency became a B Corp, would we be solving the climate emergency or is there more work to be done?
There's always more work to be done. And I think that's the thing, no company is perfect. No B Corp is perfect. I think we always talk about it as a journey of continuous improvement. And certification is just one step in that process. The beginning for some companies, but there's always more that could be done in that process. But I think one of the amazing things about the B Corp community and also kind of the standards behind it and the policies behind it is that accountability and the transparency of acknowledging where a company is performing well, where there's room for improvement. And then that's where collaboration comes in, right? So how can businesses come together to transform industries, to advocate for policy changes and things like that? Because obviously businesses play a key role in creating that change, but we need to change policies, we need to change consumer behaviors. There's no, silver bullet to solve this.
I do have more questions for you. I have one more for you, though. So I've heard the ultimate goal of B Corps is to kind of band together and go beyond and move into collective action. What can that look like?
It's probably the most exciting thing for me personally in the community right now. In my roles actually just evolved from working just in communications to working in communications and community engagement, because that's where I think you can actually have scale. So I think some examples are of that are earlier this year in January, some of the B Corps in the beauty industry came together to create the Be Beauty Coalition. And you have companies who, historically could be considered competitors, but how can they actually work together to solve some of the key challenges in that industry, whether that's packaging or logistics or, natural sourcing of their ingredients, and actually put competition aside for the greater good. And that was launched earlier this year with a bit over 20 companies. They're now at over 50 companies. So that's an incredible example, and we'd love to see more of that across different industries. But we also see examples like here in Europe, we're advocating for policy change at a European level. So you have hundreds of companies come together to really take a stand for a different way of running a business. So it's exciting to see a business thinking about beyond how can they transform their own operations to the impact that they can have collectively.
Love that. Thank you. Alessandro, you spoke about changing a lot of things, and I hear you and I agree with you. I'd love to invite you to paint us a picture of what creativity for good and what it would look like if this industry really was a force for good. What changes would we see? What would it look like?
Again, I think that inclusion is the first real step that needs to be taken in that direction. Because creativity is sort of by definition a force for good, because it solves problems. But the question is, what kind of problems are we solving, and who are those problems affecting? So the moment that we invite really a diverse group of people to the table to have those conversations, then we're sure that we're taking into account different challenges and different hopes for the future that might be hard to do when we're talking to the same kind of people and within our own bubble. So I think that's really, and I think it's happening. It's not maybe as fast as we would like it to be, but I think that's a very first important step that needs to happen for creativity to be a force for good. Yeah, I think that's really my answer. I think inclusion. It's what I would go for, because that's how we can make real change.
I have one final question before we move on to one of our members. The KLM Fly Responsibly campaign is a landmark case for the marketing industry. The first time a brand has been taken to court for aviation greenwashing claims, and yet, and I'm not attacking you because I actually accidentally worked on this campaign too, and yet, on your awards archive, which I Googled, I can read the following case study. The Fly Responsibly initiative is no greenwashing. KLM genuinely takes climate action. Through free publicity, Fly Responsibly generated over $30 million extra media value and still counting, reaching millions. Competitors have already responded to the initiative. Blah, blah, blah. In September, use of KLM's CO2 Zero tool increased by over 300%. KLM truly takes climate action. So, obviously, KLM are now facing a lawsuit. And I wanted to ask you, well, I think I just asked my question. What's your response?
Well, first of all, thanks for calling us out. I think that's what we're here for today. But well, I mean, I think this just shows how sneaky greenwashing can be, because it's not like, and this is not to like not take the blame as EDCN, but we don't control what the jury votes for and what do they decide. And of course, what they receive when they're in the jury talks, when they're doing the judging, it's what we receive from the companies and the agencies that submit their entry. So I think that clearly we were not the only ones, let's say, tricked by by this campaign. But it really shows how, even if you implement like social impact and everything, it's just so easy to fall for that trap that is greenwashing. And I think the only thing that we can do is just be more and more careful with that every day and keep calling people out when they make mistakes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, both of you, for answering questions. And we will be inviting you back on the stage. But for now, I'm going to say goodbye. And thank you so much.
The community is growing every day, literally every day. You can go on there and see it. What's so cool about now is that there are creative professionals who are joining, but there's a lot of other types of people too. What I've been noticing is there are sustainability and ESG consultants, journalists, climate scientists, and just a lot of people who you can tell are totally unconnected to either climate or creativity professionally, but want to go in. You know, maybe they want a career change. And if any of those categories describes you, you should definitely join. It's fun. There's so much to do. But as the community grows, everyone's confronting a really big, important question, which is, what does everyone have in common? Like, what binds us? And what would be the values of these 1,000-odd people all over the world who haven't met? And these values have probably shifted a bit since those 2019 set of demands that Lucy was talking about before. The core truth of all of those demands is absolutely still correct and motivates the community. But as an organization, Creatives for Climate is moving more from demanding to inviting, demanding action and change to inviting action and change. Why? Because it's just more inviting. So this is reflected in something brand new that I am sharing with you tonight, the Creatives for Climate values. There are 4 of them, and this absolutely is intended to be the glue that binds this diverse group of talented people together. And we believe in it so much, and we're so excited about pushing it forward that we're asking from today any new member to take a formal pledge to uphold and adhere to these values. Number 1 is simply that we are asking members to participate. The very first step in changing the climate status quo is to participate in really almost any process that can help you get to a solution. This is all about action, and knowing that, you know, action can take on different forms. It's great if you want to be an activist with the boldness of ambition of an Extinction Rebellion campaign, but action can also mean, you know, participating in a conversation that challenges your beliefs. The important thing is to dive in, get started, and participate. We are asking people to collaborate, which means sharing knowledge, being vulnerable about your ideas, and possibly about your need to bring in other people's expertise about things you don't know. The issues facing the climate are so much bigger, obviously, than one agency or one person's ability to solve, and so are the solutions. So let's start by collaborating. There's a tailor-made community that's better than you can imagine for this. We welcome everyone, and there's so many different people in this community, right? Different opinions, different views, different ways of learning and talking and working, and we celebrate that. We ask people to be inclusive of everyone, even and especially when you might not agree with them. And maybe this could take the form of supporting people when really difficult questions come up, where you're, for instance, spotting a blind spot and challenging yourself or another person about that. And it definitely means just being kind and respectful. We believe in the power of storytelling to change attitudes and change the world, and we're asking members to pledge to put that power to work. Help paint a picture, as Lucy was saying, of how you can be part of the solution. How can you inspire people about what they're fighting for and not just what they're fighting against, or their own small but really important role in creating a healthier planet. So you will be seeing these values up on the hub and in different materials soon. I'd hope and think they resonate. In some ways, just being here tonight is a great indication of how we're already living these values on a daily basis. So there they are, and back over to Lucy to, I think, talk more about this. Or to Kat.
Okay, so we have everyone back on stage, but we really want to start a conversation also here in the room with all of that input that you've now had, and especially looking at the commitments and kind of core values that were just presented to you. Do you have any questions that have been on your mind? Any kind of struggles when you hear these commitments that you have immediately popping up that might hold you back from actually committing or actually taking action? We're very curious to hear those, and our guests are happy to answer.
Hello, my name is Nina. I'm a steward ownership expert, but thank you all for tonight. I want to start with some advice and then ask a question to you. My advice is I read a book. It's called Bury the Chains, and it's about the abolition of slavery. It's a whole history of the movement in the UK, how people got together, lawyers and activists, and were able to abolish slavery. And it's super interesting because it also shows how the slave traders, how they acted. So the first thing they said is, okay, if you want to ban slavery in the UK, the economy is going to collapse. And then the second thing they said, okay, if you want to ban it, then we'll just move to France. And it's a really nice parallel to how fossil companies are behaving these days. So that's just a tip. Bury the chains. And my question is, so in internet culture, we see, it's meme culture, and I see that some younger people they use humor a lot, but it can also be some kind of acceptance. Okay, we'll all be dead, and we're just gonna drown, and it's gonna be all terrible, haha. So, how do you as creatives go about in making sure that you can use humor and memes and internet culture, but not? I'm not sure. I'm searching for the English word, but laconique, or help me out here. Ironic, yeah, like
sarcasm.
I don't care. It's it's ending anyway.
Thank you. Great question. Anyone from the audience who wants to react?
Hello, I'm Isabella, and I don't have necessarily an answer, but I'm 23 years old, and I'm from the younger generation, also struggling with climate anxiety a lot. What I see with my peers as well is that often, I don't use it because it's not my way of expressing my emotions. But I see more and more people making use of irony and sarcasm. That's because on one side, it just might be their way of expressing their emotions. But many times, and my friend Alex knows a lot about this, many times they fall into denial, and that's their way of, that's just their brain reacting to all the negative narratives that media are telling us. Unfortunately, we see media just using these negative narratives to put us in boxes and polarize society even more, to even gain more power and more control on our society. And I think that's why I resonated a lot with the five media story, because I think we need a narrative of hope, of positivity. Of course, there's a lot that, is not working, that is going to shit, sorry for the jargon. But yeah, we just need stories of positivity and active hope. And if we want to empower our generation and give us a space to not use sarcasm but really accept what is going on, we need other narratives. We're done, we know that our world is going the wrong way, and we need hope. But if we keep telling our children and the future generations that we're going extinct, then where do we find the power to act? where can we find joy in the world and everything that we do? So back to your question, I don't have the answer, but I just see many people my age that just use sarcasm as a way to deny what is going on, because it's just too overwhelming to hear all about this. And yeah, I don't have the answer, maybe the creatives on the stage have, but I wanted to just share my thoughts.
Thank you very much for that. As part of Clean Creatives, we collaborated with a group of 5 creatives under 25, and we brought them to the Cannes Festival of Creativity. And what we did was we said, have fun. Make some videos to post on the internet in your own voice. And as long as they talk about the connection between creativity, climate change, and fossil fuels, do what you want. And it was the most shared content from Cannes, more than any brand, more than any agency. It came from us. And it's really effective. I didn't make any of the videos, to be clear. I just told them to be nice to each other. So yeah, there is, I had those images from the Chevron ads, and they are so fake, and they are so sanctimonious, and they are so, it's the opposite of the irony, the sarcasm, the biting, whatever, and they're really ripe targets for that. And so I think part of harnessing that energy is telling a story that paints a very clear picture of who your enemies are and why they're very bad at talking to the public. It's actually makes them very fun to make fun of, and we did a lot of that. And then the last thing is, I'm actually gonna speak a little against hope. And I don't mean that in the sense that you shouldn't have it. It's a very important thing to sustain you and keep you in the fight, but there's not particularly good evidence that it's a great climate communication strategy, actually. The best evidence that we have is that the thing people need to feel to be sustained in the climate change discussion is worry, which is different than fear and different than hope, but rather a balance between them. We need to understand the problem. We need to have solutions that match the size of the problem. And if you hold those things together, worry is sort of a fear about something you haven't done yet. And that's really the thing that has the best sociological, evidence that keeps people engaged. So I just wanted to, not to say that hope is bad. We should all have hope. There is hope. But in terms of communication, we should also think about other emotional registers, in my opinion.
Angelo has an addition.
I also wanted to add to that, is like I work with so many young people, and they also just want to live, and be young. A lot of young people think they'll be young forever. I thought that when I was 18. I'm 45. I'm like, damn, I'm getting old. It's finally getting there. So it's also a thing of we have raised a lot of young people with the sentence of you're only young once, enjoy it. And now we're actually saying, yeah, while you're enjoying it, be aware of this, that, and the other, right? So it's a thing of how do you enjoy life to the fullest while being aware of the change that's happening and how you can be part of a solution. That's the main question.
I just want to say, you're only 45. That makes me feel so depressed. And as a British person, somebody talked about sarcasm. I'd like to say that sarcasm, being as a British person, is a protected cultural activity. I'm being sarcastic. But I also wanted to respond to I love the fact that you can tell you're amongst people who work in advertising. The very first question has somebody selling you a book. That was great. But it's a really good analogy, and I wanted to come onto the theme of hope, because cross-selling here, see, I've learned some of the jargon from you, cross-selling. One of our other initiatives is called Rapid Transition, the Rapid Transition Alliance, and you can look it up on rapidtransition.org, and its strapline is evidence-based hope in a warming world. And for the last 5 years, across sectors, across time, all around the world, we've been looking at where there is demonstrable, proven evidence that we can deliver the change which is needed at the speed and potential scale that the science tells us is necessary. There is hope out there. One of my favorite writers, a guy called Raymond Williams, said to be truly radical is to make hope possible rather than despair convincing. And earlier, Duncan finished on a note by quoting the UN Secretary General. I want to up the game here. I want to quote you a poet back. This is from about 50 years ago, and it goes, it's a poet called Ogden Nash who wrote, "I think I'll never see a billboard lovely as a tree. Perhaps unless the billboards fall, I'll never see a tree at all." Thank you.
I think like it's a very important topic, the one of like when we talk about hope or doom, let's say, that we all feel it's paralyzing at times. But again, I think it's also like important to focus on the more holistic picture here, because what we need to imagine is not just a future in which we solve climate change, but it's a future in which we also strive for equality, in which we also strive for sustainability and many other topics like that. And I think that's very important to imagine that kind of future. And as creative people here, we have that power to help, and we owe it to the new generations to actually help them imagine a future that's just better than the one we have. And a lot of the times we feel that in order to solve the climate crisis, there's a lot to sacrifice from our own lifestyle, right? But if we look at things a little differently, we see that our lifestyles are not making us that happy, actually. We see mental health issues across the board. There's a lot of inequality. There's a lot of issues, actually. And if we can imagine a society that's greener, more connected to nature, in which we're more connected to each other, and in which there's more equality for everybody, maybe as a side effect, we also solve the climate crisis at the same time. And that's a thing where hope comes to play. Where that's the future we have to hope for, and that's the one we have to envision, and we have to help new generation also envision with our creativity.
Thank you so much. I know there's a lot of hands popping up. I just want to skip back a few slides to the commitment list that we just heard about. Participate, collaborate, be inclusive, and drive solutions through storytelling. Do you have any concrete behaviors that you feel like you can share with this community in bringing those to life? Like, how would you in this community participate, or how would you want others to participate? How would you want to collaborate, and so on?
As creatives or whatever we do, our role often is asking challenging questions, and that can be really hard. And I think that is something that we need to be better at. I think from the perspective of inclusivity and from like challenging briefs or whatever, it's about really asking difficult questions, and that can be really hard. But also, we're also in a real position of privilege. It's predominantly able-bodied white people in this room as well. Like, we have huge access to spaces, and I think this is something that is really important, to just ask the fucking difficult questions and be the troll in the room to do that.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Good piece of advice. Asking the questions. I'm gonna move to this middle bit here for some more thoughts.
Hi. I'm very curious about the inclusive one. There's been a lot of talk around this because I think on one of the slides you were talking about shifting from demands to invitation, and also, Alessandra, you talked about being inclusive, and I'm wondering, like, for the sort of industries that, like, we've talked about that we're challenging and demanding to stop working with, like, if someone entered the community that was kind of previously working for one of those industries or wanting to change, and like, where do you stand on like that line of demanding change and saying no to certain things versus also welcoming and being inviting to those that are sort of willing to change? So I'm curious about that sort of conflict.
I think it's a great question, and I'll make one observation, which is that a lot of the new members are coming from, you could call it like big bad advertising agencies, and very much want to change their perspective but don't know how. And that is absolutely welcome. That's absolutely inclusivity. I'm thinking about an earlier point, I forgot who made it, but about greenwashing often not being intentional. You know, when creative people end up working for bad, frankly, it's not often because they personally have some devious, agenda. It's that they get sucked into things and maybe overrepresent how something small can contribute to something big. The point of inclusivity in this regard is to, I think, welcome people in so that they can change their mindset, or at least challenge their beliefs. And probably the more people doing that together, the better in the long run. Does that answer your question, or?
And just to add to that, I think, you know, even just today's presentation, we spent, or today's session, we spent probably an hour talking about, you know, what bad creativity looks like, and, you know, maybe 20 minutes talking about, you know, what does creativity for good look like. I think that's indicative of how much easier it is to call somebody out for, you know, their behaviors or their past, or, you know, yeah, working, you know, not knowing the information. But I think a lot of the topics we're talking about today are incredibly nuanced. And it's much easier to tell somebody, hey, you need to, I don't know, stop using plastic, for example, than actually consider the implications of that in an entire value chain, and yeah, the emissions of changing to other materials and things like that. So yes, 100% we need to, like, urgently and at scale transform the current system that we're in, but that's not gonna happen overnight. So I think we also need a lot more empathy in the world, while also, you know, holding people accountable to make that change, but equipping them and empower them to do that. I mean, I think there's this natural tension, right, of wanting to exclude people who are part of the problem and wanting to genuinely work with them to transform that industry at scale. Because I think if, you know, you're in this bubble only applauding kind of the niche individuals or organizations who are truly, truly leading the way, are you actually kind of making a difference in shaping that industry and changing the economic system and things like that? So, for example, I think Tony's Chocolonely is a great example of a company that is adamant about really changing the cocoa industry and working with big suppliers, and not just saying, you know, I'm only going to work with a supplier that 100% doesn't have slavery in their supply chain, but, you know, working with kind of changing those supply chains to eliminate slavery within that. So I think it's a mix, and I think for sure there needs to be standards that help companies better understand what good business looks like. But so much of the certification process is also embedding accountability and transparency so that consumers are informed, you know, where is a company performing well, where do they need to improve, and also, you know, ensuring that they need to recertify every 3 years, so they're continuing to kind of uphold those behaviors. But it's a challenge that I think we face as a network and as an industry, and we're actually going through and have been going through a process of continuous improvement, actually since the organization was born. But in 2020, B-Lab started this multi-year, multi-stakeholder process to evolve our standards and look at, you know, how do you truly define good business for today, for the challenges that we're meeting right now. So historically, we've had a mechanism for those of you who've gone through the very long and hard process to certify, you know, that there's a lot of questions to answer. But we're evolving from the process of having a flexible scoring framework to identifying a set of non-negotiables for all businesses to meet across the key topics that are truly essential to, create a more inclusive, regenerative, and equitable economic system.
You go, girl.
Pass me the mic. Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah. It was a comment on the final number 4, and there's a reference. If I can, I had laser eye surgery, so I can read the bottom line.
Shall I read it?
Creating a regenerative future, and I think what's could be in there too is justice, creating a just future, because we've alluded a lot in this about climate and about inequality as if they are separate things, and we know the impacts of climate change are already felt extremely unequally. And as someone alluded to back there about, you know, this being quite a privileged space, part of, I feel, being in this movement is about raising that, is about asking who's not in the room, whose voice is not being represented. When we're talking about climate impacts, kind of where is that impact falling? And I don't want it to be called Creatives for Climate Justice, because I think that has a whole different tone to it, but I kind of would love that to be the subtext, because it is about people, and it is about the people who've always had the shit end of things are getting it the first. And so I would love that to be part of the conversation. And also, these issues are complex, and coming new into the sustainability climate movement, it's hard to wrap your head around it. But I think it's like, even if you don't have the words, just trying to get that on the table is a job we can all do. And that's the end of my
Love
speech.
that. Thank you, Sarah. What are my blind spots? That relates directly to that. Who can I continue to learn from? I think maybe we should just change it to like, how can I confront my privilege, to be maybe more explicit, because for me it's very much in the DNA of what we're trying to achieve, but we probably need to make it more explicit. So I think a regenerative and just would be great. I'm just gonna say it like it is, and I love you guys, but I've never actually had 3 white men speak in a row. However, you know, these are the guys at the front that like had something to say, so I didn't know what to do about it, and I knew it was gonna come up tonight. I actually explicitly wanted to start tonight with a conversation about decolonization and the connection between capitalism and colonialism. It didn't come up, but I feel you, and we're so up for that conversation. This movement is too white, but I would actually just say that like it's very much in our DNA, and I feel the frustration, and I feel like we all have it. So like we will adapt that, and just so welcome these sorts of conversations.
Yeah, thank you. So it's also to respond to the thing about be inclusive. I really believe that to be more inclusive, like to touch a new people, it's to create events in real life. Like we are creating an event together, but it's how to create an event to touch a new audience. And what I'm thinking is to create about like festival, like to mix cultural events with climate issue, and to bring like scientists and artists in the same place and also bring new public. And it will be the thing is like with that people will come, and also the media will talk about it. So it will be more about like create a new way of how to be like to make it happen. Yeah. So thank you.
Could I add to that also? Like when we created a program called Plus+1 together with ADCN, and it was about allowing kids of color the opportunity to just dive into the world of creativity, like creative marketing industry, and just have a taste of what it is. And when we started, the first thing we said was be able to dissect the steps and the roles, and bring it back to a level of full understanding. So not all those words that you know within the industry, and you know like oh yeah, and then the DOP does this, and then you're like, the DO what? Bring it back to a simple thing. If you want people that haven't been in a conversation to really feel the urgency, bring it back to when you felt it, not where you are right now, right? It's like teaching a kid how to play basketball. Don't play the full game. Teach him the love of just dribbling the ball, you know, and just passing it around and just having fun with it. Because when you have fun with it, or when you enjoy it, when you're engaged into it, then you will learn by the speed of light, and you will get to a level where you can sit in this room and don't feel to be the odd one out, you know. So don't go there to impress people with what you know. Go there with the understanding that they don't know, and you want them to fully understand why you're so adamant about it. And I think that's the challenge. And if you want to do that in a festival setting, that can be good. You know, if you want to do it with scientists, I don't know, because they also want to talk about what they know now. You know, bring it back, make it simple. Like the person that started 3 months ago might be your best ally. You know, because he just started three months ago. So it's about that. It's about understanding again that you want them to understand the message. You don't want to just throw the message out there.
Just to very briefly add, like when we talk about storytelling, I also want to just reframe that and include like in-person events, and because it's all about connection. Storytelling is all about connection, and where does that happen? That can happen in campaigns, it can happen through artwork, it can happen through music, but definitely in-person events, you know, like here, like festivals, it's all sharing stories, sharing connections, bringing people with different perspectives and different voices together and seeing, you know, what you can achieve together. And in-person events of any sort are just such a huge part of that. So it's an honor to be here and see everyone in this in-person event.
I was actually sparked, my interest was sparked a little bit when I realized there are students in the room, and that also got me thinking during this event, like the probably thousands of people who are graduating every year in both academic and non-academic, like maybe even very practical or applied studies. And probably they won't know about this community or the things that exist. So I just wonder if maybe part of our commitment should be to, I don't know, do a conversation with students or something in universities. Just thinking out loud. I know you are working with young people. I'm just wondering if that should be part of that commitment. I don't know.
There's someone just behind you who was really eager.
I could not have asked for a better opening for that. Hi, I'm Susanna. I work at a university. And, and I'm here with my colleague, Luce, and that's exactly why we came today. We've been talking a lot with Lucy on how can we activate the university community around what's happening in here. Yeah, my background is in creative business, so a lot of our students, like, you are the industry they aspire to be in. And something we've been talking about is, to be honest, when they leave us and come to you, every job is going to be a climate job, right? That's what we're looking into. So that's why I'm so excited to be here, and I want to hear from you. How can we partner? How can we help? How can we shape education in such a way that they're prepared to enter what the future looks like in 1 year, 2 years, 10 years? So you have ideas?
I actually just, before Paulette, I was going to say, oh my God, we're about to partner with COACI. So thank you so much, because COACI is, you know, an innovation an umbrella organization of like over 5 different universities.
Yes.
That actually reached out to us, I think, before we were even ready and organized enough, really. So we don't have the capacity to chase people right now. So thank you.
I think we need professors to be advocates for their students. We need them to you see this in your class, you know what kind of future your students are facing, what the next 50 years really does look like right now, and we need you to be an advocate to the organizations, to the companies that are trying to hire your students, to tell them what the standards are and to help be their voice, because you have tenure and the students do not. And the other thing I just wanted to say about inclusion and talking about people who are in the industries that have worked on fossil fuels, worked on high carbon clients, you're in some ways the most important part of this conversation. You have the most leverage. You're the person I most want to speak with if you're here. If you work in an agency with fossil fuel clients, you're actually the person we most need in our community. And we try to make that explicit, and I hope that's clear across these instances.
Could I ask a question back to the lady from the university? Like, could you do me a favor and also weigh in on a conversation on how to make MBO education more involved and up the way they get educated? Because I think university way of teaching is inspiring, HBO way of teaching is also inspiring, MBO way of teaching not so much. I think you could actually, if university would weigh in on the conversation on making MBO greater, then you will have a way bigger group of people participating in this subject.
Thank you.
So I am also struggling, for example, to talk to people who are really, really older than me, because you mentioned that we should talk to younger people in a fun way to really engage in conversation, right? But how do we talk to older people who are in high positions in a fun way where they don't want to even listen? So So I guess when I'm like, hey, how are you today? Let's talk about sustainability. So fun. They're like, who are you? So could you answer maybe?
Sure, I can start, but maybe, yeah, would love to hear from everybody else. And I think it goes back to the question on, you know, do you use memes or cynicism? Where's the room for that? And I think, you know, creativity is a means to an end. I think it's important to start those conversations with, you know, what are you trying to get from that large company or from that CEO? And I think, you know, bring your personality into it and your tone into it. I think, you know, embrace the fact that you're young because you bring a different perspective. And I think that's the beauty of this community of, I think, if we stop attacking each other and kind of, you know, meet each other in a place where, you know, there is that space to call people out and acknowledge, you know, where a company needs to improve or, you know, where they need to change their behaviors, but also acknowledging the role that they have to play in, you know, kind of positioning what's the benefit of them changing their ways or what's the benefit to, you know, recruiting new younger people or engaging and learning from pioneering companies where collectively they can create a bigger change. Like, I think there's a win-win scenario here, and I think it's about kind of what, like, being clear about what's the objective that you're trying to get out of that first, and then be fun. I think, you know, I don't know, bring memes into the conversation, you know, use the F word in your articles and things like that. I think get people's attention because I think sometimes, you know, we are in this world of information overload, and I think everybody already knows that it is a climate emergency. So what are you bringing to the table? Are you actually helping them or just attacking them? And are you willing to collaborate, or what's the role in that conversation? I think start from there, and hopefully the doors will open.
I have something really quick to tie together a couple thoughts. I think that everyone's learning in this space. It's very hard to find the person who has like a PhD in sustainability communications because it doesn't exist, right? Or maybe it does. But I wager it's a relatively recent development. The point is, this is an amazing space where whether you're 18 years old or 45 years old, everyone's learning. And if they're pretending that they're an expert with a couple exceptions, you know, they're faking it and they're trying to learn. So to go back to the point about in-person events, I couldn't support that more because in my experience, it's the most, it's like the least formal events that are often the most useful, where people feel like they can share ideas and make genuine contributions. And I think if there is a way to bring students or student-age people together with more senior people in informal gatherings in cities like London or Amsterdam or wherever you are, and kind of facilitate people coming together and learning about each other's perspectives. That could be a really great way to take the work of Creators for Climate further and just simply to learn from each other. So.
Thank you so much.